What is going on, everybody? Welcome to That Franchise Guy. Now, between Madden and NFL, there's not a ton of time for talking about what a lot of our passions is in fantasy football, but I did want to get a little fantasy football content out there just to kind of talk some fantasy, show you guys what I'm doing this fantasy season. So we are going to be doing a mock draft in this video here in just a second. A couple announcements before we do get into that, though. For one, I'm also going to be doing a 12-man subscriber league. This is something a lot of people have been asking for. I'm expecting a lot of demand to get into this. We are just going to go on a first-come, first-served basis. It will be a 12-man, 2-quarterback league, half-point PPR, your typical snake draft. So if you are interested, this is what you're going to have to do. You got to message me on Twitter. The DMs are open at TFG_football. Let me know you're interested. And we're going to collect the league dues via Venmo or PayPal. So once you have expressed your interests and paid, I will send you an invite to the ESPN League. And then the draft is also going to be this Sunday, September 3rd at 8 p.m. Central Time. So if that all sounds good to you, make sure you head over to Twitter and express your interest to me. I expect this to fill up somewhat quickly, so definitely get on that as soon as you finish watching this video. And then the other thing is, if you scroll down just to the description here, you will find actually my top 200 fantasy football ranks. I know a lot of people have done their drafts already, but if you haven't, definitely use that as a resource. It's free. I'm offering it to you for free, and it's got tiers in there as well. I know the fantasy footballers love their tier system. Definitely a great way to draft, so definitely check that out, again, in the description below. So let's get into the mock draft here, thanks to Fantasy Draft Pro's Draft Wizard. So as far as the league settings go for this, we're going to go with the very settings that we're going to use for the 12-man league. It's going to be a very competitive setup. So you got half-point PPR, 12 teams. We're going to draft from the 6th spot with the Zeke suspension. That kind of makes it a tough position. It's right in the middle as well. So good challenge there at that spot. And then as far as the roster goes, like I said, 2-quarterback leagues. I'm a big proponent of, not only does it really double your interest in watching quarterbacks on Sundays, which I think is great, but it just drives me crazy that the most valuable players in all of football are almost the equivalent of a defense in fantasy. And it's really disappointing that you're sitting in the 10th round and Ben Roethlisberger, Andrew Luck, like all these top quarterbacks can be there. You go 2 quarterbacks, you need to take a quarterback earlier, and just having a guy like Aaron Rodgers actually impacts your outcome. And then I also add a flex here, so a very deep league. You got to be competitive here. You really got to nail those later round picks. It's really going to eliminate luck. We're going to get rid of kicker as well. I think in a lot of leagues, 10-team leagues, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the season, if your roster is set up 1 quarterback, your standard ESPN league, I will say, yeah, there's some skill element to it, but a lot of it just comes down to luck. I like eliminating luck. I think the more you know, the more good moves you make through the season, it should pay off come playoff time. So these settings I have here really are going to be best set for that. So let's jump in here with the 6th pick. And so the first picks go David Johnson, Le'Veon, Antonio Brown, Rodgers, and Odell Beckham. Surprisingly, Julio Jones still there. And that's a no-brainer pick for me. I don't think I really need to explain that to a lot of people, especially with not being a huge run of quarterbacks early. Let's grab Julio Jones. I think he has a fantastic season, right on par with those last 2 years. I know the Kyle Shanahan loss hurts there, but that might also mean they just feed him more because they don't know what to do. So 3 quarterbacks go: Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. I'm not going to take any of these guys, I don't think. I mean, I really think you could probably get Andrew Luck, Jameis Winston later there in the next round. So let's see who is available to us. We went receiver early, so we could look at running back. Zeke Elliott is still there, and it's tempting. I will say, if this was a 10-team league, and 6 teams made the playoffs, or 8 teams, I would definitely consider him. I would take him if it was 8 teams, but in a deep league like this, by the way, 6 teams will make the playoffs in this 12-man league. It's a big risk there to take Zeke. I think he isn't going to be as good as last year anyway, so I don't think Zeke is the pick there, though he's tempting. I do like Todd Gurley this year, but you're betting on the Rams having a big year. So I'm going to look at receiver, I think. And even here, though, it's tough. I mean, this is a tough spot right here. There's no one really standing out to me, and I have some receivers in mind later that I think are excellent values. Rob Gronkowski is one guy that definitely stands out to me, but I actually think I am going to go back on those words and take Jameis Winston at quarterback, who I think could be primed for a big year. I like Andrew Luck a lot, but in 2-quarterback league, it makes it harder. And when you got to spend a high round pick on the guy, it makes it even more hard. So the picks after us go Michael Thomas, Todd Gurley, Matt Ryan, Montgomery. Zeke goes in the early third. So not a lot of quarterbacks going there. They do get Ty Montgomery goes, which is a huge surprise to me. He was a guy that I was kind of hoping on getting later. So I think the pick for me is going to be at receiver again. I don't really love any of these running backs. I'm not considering any of those tight ends. So I'm going to take my guy this year, Keenan Allen. They are going to force feed him. It was showing in the week 3 preseason game. I am taking him in almost every league. You'll see in my rankings, I have him ranked in the 2nd round. So Keenan Allen, almost a no-brainer for me in the 3rd round here. And some quarterbacks going off the board now. But some players that I think we could actually get later. Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz are 2 quarterbacks that I'm very high on. So we're going to wait there. And then really on top of my rankings here, Terrell Pryor, another receiver I'm really high on. I think he has a very good chance of finishing as a top 10 receiver. So we're going to take him and just load up on the receivers. It is a 3-wide receiver league, so extra demand there at that position. So I think we need to look running back. And Carlos Hyde, I believe if you look at my tiers, he might be at the bottom of that tier. And he is the last available. Well, actually, there are some guys in there now that I look at it, but I really like Carlos Hyde here. I think the 49ers are bound for a much surprising season, so I'm going to take Carlos Hyde and get that running back locked down. So only 2 more quarterbacks go. It's getting a little scary. It's thinning, but Carson Wentz still there at 20. A player that I love. I love Carson Wentz to break out. I'm actually going to risk it, though, and hope that we can get him next round because Jordan Reed is a standout pick here to me. When he plays, he is just as good as Rob Gronkowski. I believe he actually outscores Rob Gronkowski. So we're going to take Jordan Reed and hope that the quarterback will come back to us. Sure enough, no quarterbacks taken, so maybe we actually wait even longer. Let's look at running back. Just see our options, and Doug Martin is sitting there, and I think that's another no-brainer pick to me, a guy that I have at the bottom of that tier 3 rather, but off that suspension, I think he's a top 10 running back. He's only missing 3 games. I think we can survive it if we take Jaquiz later. Love the talent. I love the opportunity there, so let's grab Doug Martin. I am loving this roster right now. And then the quarterbacks, we do lose Tyrod Taylor. I think this is the time to take Carson Wentz. I would be devastated if we lost him. So we're going to grab Wentz as our 2nd quarterback, a guy I think is going to break out. I have the Eagles going to the NFC Championship this year. So unfortunately, Tyrell Williams goes. He was the other guy I was going to consider there. Considering we have Keenan Allen, he's a handcuff of sorts. I think he's going to have value without Keenan Allen anyway, without a Keenan Allen injury rather. So Amir Abdullah's still there, technically the number 1 running back for that team. But I'm really not high on the Detroit Lions this year, so that's a tough pick for me to make personally. We do still need a starting flex player. Adrian Peterson available. I'm kind of buying that, but that's a risk. I think Robert Kelly needs to be the pick here. A good offense. And a guy that I don't think is going to lose the starting job to Samaje Perine anytime soon. I'm comfortable with Robert Kelly as my starting flex going into the year. That said, we actually do have Doug Martin on the suspension, so that's an even better pick with that suspension, I think. So here we're really just trying to find value. The best player available approach. Kevin White is certainly interesting, but it's a little early, and considering we're going to be starting this player most likely for a lot of games this year, that's a pretty big risk to take on Kevin White, a guy that can't stay healthy. John Brown at the top of the board. I've never been a big believer in him. So I do think we're going to have to go with one of these running backs. And Eddie Lacy is the guy I'm most comfortable going with here. I like the talent. I think Seattle wants to get back to that running game. And the odds are he's going to end up winning that starting job. So I'm going to go with Eddie Lacy. So with 4 running backs now in a 3 wide receiver league, we really should add a receiver here. Kevin White is still available. He's really standing out to me as really the only guy on this list of guys remaining that has a good chance of being a top, 20 receiver. So let's take a chance on Kevin White, and I don't know if you'll actually be able to get him this late in your drafts. He's definitely rising after the Cameron Meredith injury, but that's a pick that I like the upside of. And I think we should go wide receiver again just to make sure that we don't end up thin here. And so Zay Jones at the top. I'm not actually a very big Zay Jones guy. I don't mind Nelson Aguilar, honestly. Really just looking for someone that's going to get some big use this year. It's really thin pickings here, though. I love Kenny Golladay, but that Detroit offense I don't think is going to be very good. I think he's more of a great find in Dynasty. I'm actually really thinking about Cooper Kupp here. I think Jared Goff's going to look there a lot. I think that offense is going to be serviceable this year. I think Cooper Kupp is going to be a safe play on a lot of weeks. And then sitting here in the 13th round, Samaje Perine, the top player available. We took Robert Kelly. Definitely a tempting pick there. Jaquiz Rodgers and Jamal Williams are gone. We could have used last pick on Jaquiz Rodgers. So we're going to take Perine here just to make sure we do get the running back in Washington. We'd hold on to him for a little bit, but eventually you would be able to know if you need to drop the guy. So running backs is now very thin. I think Shane Vereen would be a decent pick here. But we're really set at running back. We should probably grab one more receiver. And a guy that's really not getting discussed is Torrey Smith. If anything happened to Alshon Jeffrey, I think Torrey Smith would actually get some pretty good volume. I think Carson Wentz is a very good quarterback, so we're going to take Torrey Smith. And our last pick of the draft here, definitely a tough pick. A guy that is not getting much love right now is Dion Lewis. They have all those guys, and the volume's going to be tough. But I think he's a guy that we'll know very early in the year if he's going to be relevant. It's our last pick of the draft, so a lot of those options we were just looking at are going to be available on the waiver wire. I love Dion Lewis's talent. I think Bill Belichick will find a way to get him involved. He should be healthy this year. So it's kind of a controversial pick here. Not a lot of people love Dion Lewis this year. I'm just a fan of the talent, so we're going to take him. I thought about John Ross, but just so many weapons there. Tough to make that move. So last pick, we're going to go defense. We have to go defense. And a defense I'm kind of targeting is the Eagles. Fantasy points are generated off of pass rush and pressure, and the Eagles do as good a job as any at that. So I think they're going to have a solid year from a fantasy defense perspective. So here's our team. We get a D+. I don't really look at that. If you want a high grade, just take the best player available. But our receiving core is loaded. I love that. It drops off pretty quickly, though. That flex play, like I said, that's a pivotal point in a deep league like that. You really got to nail that. But when this team gets healthy, you got Carlos Hyde and Doug Martin, our two very solid running backs with those receivers, and we went quarterbacks early. I know not everyone loves Carson Wentz, but I think he is going to finish at least as a top 12 quarterback this year. And then Jordan Reed is someone on this roster that he's a game breaker. You can see that taking him hurts you in that flex spot a little bit, but he is a receiver that you get to play at tight end, and there's really only two guys that between him and Gronk are plus factors there. So that is going to do it for this video. Guys, make sure you head over to Twitter at TFG_football if you want your chance to get into this league. It's going to be first come, first serve. Per those rules that I established in the intro, go back and rewatch that if you definitely want in. And just in general, leave a comment below if you want me to do more fantasy content. I don't have a ton of time between Madden and my other NFL stuff, but if the fantasy coverage, if you like it, definitely let me know. Consider giving the video a like if you enjoyed it. So cheers, everyone. That's all I got. We'll see you for the next one.